After 7 months, it's finally happened. It's brought back. It's exactly what we look for. But now the fun stuff gets to start. We had all the anticipation for 7 months. Now the fun start gets to happen. It's Dart versus Altmyer season right here on Locked On Ole Miss.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Let's get right into it. Luke Altmyer, Jaxson Dart. It's all began. The first throws of the fall portion of the competition has happened. Whether they were on, whether or not they were in shorts, that doesn't really matter. But the competition is on. So what are we looking for in shorts, this shorts and helmet that they're wearing? We always used to look at it as, people tend to look at it as a nothing thing, acclimation days, when it comes to the NCAA, but there's actual mental reps and a mental aspect that can start to be developed. And you can see if they're throwing the ball to the right spot, whether they have full pads, shoulder pads, or no pads. That doesn't change. So all of that is important. All the coaches are going to be watching film and combing through every little piece of it. But it should be a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor. Watch on YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications when we release a new video, which happens quite frequently. And, of course, upvote the video itself. Also, don't forget to follow us on all of our numerous social platforms, because videos get released on there as well. We've done like 9 TikTok videos today already. So this is going to grow. This is full speed ahead. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in. Anyway, like I was telling you, Jaxson Dart and Luke Altmyer, this is a real competition. This is real. And as I told you, a fast start was important for the quarterback position. A lot of the storylines you're going to hear over the next 3 or 4 days are stuff we've been talking about for 2 weeks. Because we're ahead of the game. We knew what we wanted to talk about in these earlier practices. The storylines and things they're going to think about, we've already done that. So we're a little bit ahead of the game. So we're talking about players that might be under the radar today. We're going to talk about Jeremiah Dillon. We're going to talk about Larry Simmons. We're going to talk about Tyler Banks and Jaron Willis today. But that's segment 2 and segment 3. Right now is all about the quarterback competition, because we need to talk about the quarterback competition, because the quarterback competition is what you want to hear about. Can I say that again and again and again? It's going to be important for one of the quarterbacks to get off to a fast start. Just period. You don't necessarily see them as somebody that might need to get off to a fast start, or you think that fall camp's this long, arduous process. No, like the first game is a month away. If you practice every day, which is not allowed during school, if you practiced every day, the most you could get practices in is about 30, about 29. If you take the days off and everything, so you're probably at about 25 or 24 practices from now until the Troy game. A lot has to be done. A fast start needs to be expected. Now, with this backfield, it gives you a little bit of leeway that you might not otherwise have. There have been years, and we talked to Bill Flowers about this, to where the quarterback position and the lack of a dominant running back meant the offense kind of was listless. It was aimless. And I remember I was in that building in 2004. I saw what it looked like. You had Michael Spurlock. You had Ethan Flatt, and you had Robert Lang. The three-headed monster. We always talk about the three-headed monster at Ole Miss. We always talk about exactly what it looks like. Well, that is the worst case scenario for this quarterback competition, is the three-headed monster, essentially. I don't think we're there because all of these quarterbacks have more talent than all three of those had to play quarterback. Now, Michael Spurlock as a kick returner and all that's a completely different story. That was in the days before the spread offense. If Michael Spurlock would have played college football 10 years later, he might have been an All-American. I mean, seriously. He was just born a little bit too early. Ethan Flatt, he had the height. He did not have the strongest arm. He had a weird release, if I remember correctly. The pass against South Carolina to Bill Flowers, definitely like that. And Robert Lane was just a true freshman, a redshirt freshman. Had to learn how to play quarterback because I think he went to Neville, if I'm not mistaken, around Monroe. He was basically running the Tebow offense in high school before the Tebow offense existed. So he had to learn how to play the position. So there was growing pains. And we'd gotten to the point where at the end of the year, they had pretty much decided on Robert Lane. But the lack of a fast start allowed it to snowball to where it took until the LSU game for them to even have what seemed to be a realistic plan. Remember, that team went to Laramie and lost. I think that team lost to Memphis in the first game. That was the one where Michael Spurlock threw a pass in the end zone and it hit the concrete and you could hear the concrete just hit. It was just an unbelievable sound that you will never hear again. That happened that night. So it will be interesting to see what happens in the quarterback competition. It needs to have a fast start. We want to avoid 2004. We want this to look as close to 2001 as humanly possible. When Eli Manning took it, grabbed it, went in through it, and was 20 straight completions into the Murray State game in his first start. That's what we want this to look like. Not 2004. Want it to look closer to 2015. Of course, that was a competition that was not really a competition, if you know what I'm saying. That was a situation to where Ron Buchanan and Devontae Kincaid, they were kind of also rans, but Chad Kelly was the dude on that team. I'll never forget Chad Kelly's first pass in a game. It was like a 25-yard out, and he made that pass, and I'm like, well, that's the dude right there. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how that pans out. But fast starts are a key for both Luke Altmyer and Jaxson Dart. Whoever makes that fast start and gets that jump into the lead has a chance to completely run away with this. I'm dead serious. Even with Luke Altmyer being the prohibited leader going into fall camp, even with Jaxson Dart being a little bit behind what is said, whoever has the fast start starting today or starting yesterday has a chance to run off and take this. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be a fun competition. I've been looking forward to this quarterback competition for 7 months. If you don't believe me, go back and listen to the shows. Listen to how much I've talked about a quarterback competition since January. Specifically these two guys. I was literally the only person that took this seriously until it was time to take this seriously, and then other people kind of joined in. When it comes to this, I was first. I have no doubt about that. But it's going to be an interesting competition. It is going to be a situation that you kind of want this to grow. You want this to have fun. Because remember, if one of them gets off to a fast start and wins the job, because remember, whoever wins this job, the Ole Miss quarterback situation, is better for it. The only situation other than that is not finding a quarterback. Whoever wins the job, clearly wins the job, Ole Miss is better for it. So, we're going to keep talking about this, and as they grow, they're doing the acclimation days. They're going to basically be a week before they're able to put the pads on. I think I'm hearing rumors of the 13th being an open practice, probably in Vaughn Hemingway. I think it's 9 in the morning or something like that. I don't know. I'll have to look at my email about that. But we'll see exactly what happens. If you're interested in laying eyes on the team before this happens, you can go. If the intern is going to be in Oxford, he'll be there. And we'll see how it goes, because this is fun. This is what we signed up for. I mean, you can absolutely just smile about it. All right, I want to tell you about Built Bar Puffs. Have you heard about them yet? If not, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There is a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Do you make cookie dough? I don't know. I don't know about that. Cookie dough chunk puffs are 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. So run to Built.com, snag a box for you and your family. It'll be the perfect treat, and you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself if you need to do that. What's great about Built is all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So here's what you need to do. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, all one word, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Do not forget to rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. You can say whatever you want to say. Just make sure it's a 5-star review. That'll help others that are searching Ole Miss be able to find this podcast. So a 5-star review would be able to help us out there. You can say whatever you want to say. I actually look at them, I actually read them, and I take the advice that is given. But please make sure it's a 5-star review. All right. In the first segment of the show, we talked a little bit about the quarterback competition, and we went back over the need to start off quickly. Now let's start to talk about some more under-the-radar guys that you may have lost count of, maybe. They kind of fell between the cracks. We'll say that. And these are freshmen. And just like we did our top freshmen to break out a couple of days ago. Well, these are kind of unheralded freshmen. These are people that you may have forgot about. These are people that have a chance to be really good, but the transfers drown them out. The top of the freshman class drown them out. I mean, one of these is an Under Armour All-American, but you get my point. But Larry Simmons and Jeremiah Dillon, the two wide receivers from Mississippi, I think we are in a situation where one of them is from, I think, the coast, and the other is from, Sumrall, if I'm not mistaken. Two really big, really athletic dudes that have a chance to do really special things. Now, here's my concern, and the reason they are not heralded and they're on this list is because, namely of Braylon Brown, of the local recruited receivers that we have been expecting to take a step that just hasn't shown up. You have Jonathan Mingo and you have a bunch of dudes. Is this another bunch of dudes category? Or is one of these the guy that's going to get on the field early? You take in the slot receivers where you have Jalen Robinson. You have Jordan Watkins. You have Jalen Knox, who might end up being on the outside after all this gets said and done. You got J.J. Henry, who was the recruited player that was most effective during the spring game, and that was because he played in the slot. They're going to ask the questions about the outside receivers, what's wrong with them? And that is because those guys don't necessarily make a ton of plays, because most of the offense is running between the hashes, the slot receiver, the tight end, the running backs. those guys are going to make most of the plays in this offense because, honestly, it's hard to run an RPO off a corner. Of course, is every pass an RPO off a corner? I don't know. But because of that, that means the outside receivers are going to look like they're struggling. You might have a Jonathan Mingo with 30 catches, and the number 2 receiver on the outside might have 20 catches at Braylon Brown. And everybody's going to ask the question, what is wrong with the outside receivers? Well, the answer is maybe nothing. They're just not the focal point of this offense. Other than the 10% Lane Kiffin shot plays that exist on the outside, there's not a lot of room for them to operate. So we'll see what this does with Larry Simmons and Jeremiah Dillon. They are good-looking prospects, both of them. Larry Simmons is built, I think, similarly to Jonathan Mingo. Jeremiah Dillon looks like a beefier slot-type receiver. He's a guy that I could see developing on the inside. But he can play outside as well. Both of these guys have the versatility to do that. But they're Mississippi high school receivers, and occasionally high school receivers might pop early, but most of the time they take a year or two. It's just the way it is. So we'll see what happens and if one of them develops. I think this has a chance to develop. I'm not looking for it to develop. Again, if you hear anybody talking about any of this from today's practice, none of this is off of today's practice. Because this is helmets and shorts, and there's not a lot you can glean from today's practice. You can pretty much talk about things that need to happen, and you still need them to happen. They haven't started happening yet. Other than a freshman going through a situation, Ole Miss likes to run 2 fields against the team and give the young guys added teaching down there, like with the freshmen, to help them with their learning curve of picking up the offense. So they'll run like 2 separate fields of offensive team and then 2 separate fields of defensive team. That's just what they do. And today and tomorrow and the next couple of days, you're going to see that a bunch. And I think you're going to see that multiple weeks into spring training, because they do want these young guys to get ready, because there are some places that these guys can fill some holes. And these guys can help the team. Otherwise, you got Zach Evans. You've got Ulysses Bentley, the 4th. And then there's a freshman, Quinshon Judkins. You like to see Quinshon get up to speed as quickly as possible. Then all of a sudden you have a 3-headed monster in the backfield. You have Kentrell Bullock out of Columbia. I think there was another running back by the name of Jamal Pittman that came out of Columbia. I'm just kidding. I'm just talking about Walter Payton. But, every 20 years or so, Columbia is good. They have a decent prospect come through. Kentrell Bullock is one of these guys that has been poised to take a step for a while now. We need to see it. He's in show me mode. Once you hit junior, it's show me mode. Potential doesn't necessarily matter. He's fast, he's quick, he's strong, he's big. He's in show me mode for playing time and everything. He's got a new offensive coordinator to impress. Now, the system's not going to change, but the person being impressed might. Jeff Lebby may not have been a Kentrell Bullock guy. Charlie Weiss might. We don't know. We have to see at the end of this month, whenever they go into Troy, exactly how they look. I want to make sure that that Troy game is not sloppy, that they make the plays that they're supposed to make, that they really, really put pressure on the other team, but do not put themselves in a hole. Remember, there's a lot of run blocking that these guys do. Because of that, if the quarterback holds the ball in an RPO, the defensive line is going to bust through. We saw this against Baylor. Because they're run blocking, there's not really much forgiveness to a quarterback that holds onto the football. Either Luke Altmyer or Jaxson Dart are going to need to handle that. Anyway, let's take a short break. When we come back, we are going to talk about the linebacker position. who, if you listen correctly, that was the transfer episodes of positions battles that could stand out. And this is the high school version of that, because there's two players completely different, high upside, both of them. It'll be interesting to see. Anyway, stick around. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell for notifications of new videos, and, of course, upvote the video itself. It'd appreciate me a bunch. You guys are doing fantastic this week. Thank you very much for doing this, and it is going to help us along the way. So, in the first segment, we talked about Dart and Altmyer because, yes, of course. Second segment, we talked about Jeremiah Dillon and Larry Simmons. And the third segment, we're going to talk about Tyler Banks and Jaron Willis, two linebackers. And you look at the Ole Miss linebacker room. You've got Troy Brown, a three-time all-conference player in the MAC. You've got Kari Coleman, who is a former Big 12 co-freshman of the year with Isheem Young. You've got Ashanti Seastrunk, who is a guy that's been here seemingly 5 years at this point. You've got Austin Keys, who hasn't been able to stay healthy, but when he has, he makes pretty decent plays. He's an extremely physical player. So you're like, why are you bringing this up, Steve? Why are these two guys important? Why do I need to know about these guys? And that's a pretty good question, because I just told you a two deep at linebacker, and a lot of people are not going to put a two deep at linebacker. I just did that off the top of my head. Forgot somebody, I'm sorry. But Jaron Willis was an Under Armour All-American out of Georgia. Linebacker. He fits the defense of what we exactly do here. And the reason I tell you that is in the 3-2-6, and like I said, we're going to do four-man fronts as well, but the defensive principles are not really going to change. Okay? If you do that if you anything outside of a package, things get difficult and there's more information than a defense can absorb. So they have to keep it simple, which means they're going to keep it pretty much the same. And I think they're going to stick with the 3-2-6 principles because they've recruited to it. They've hired coaches that come from it. And you can see why they'll be pretty good, honestly. So, Jaron Willis, an Under Armour All-American game. This defense uses the offense's rules against them. Chance Campbell was quite good. He was a tackling machine in the Big Ten at Maryland. He was exactly one at Ole Miss. He did exactly what he did here, which is what you want from a transfer. And Jaron Willis can probably grow into that role. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't need a bit. I get that. Now, there's rumors that the federal government is going to spring can transfer every year. Scholarships are guaranteed for life, and something else. And the NCAA is doing it. This scholarship thing is going to happen, folks. People might spike the football. They might take a victory lap because it's not getting voted on in April. This is happening one way or another. And the reason it's happening is the only way you can get away with really having to pay them and this truly becoming a pay-for-play event is freedom of movement. That's the only way to delay this. And the NCAA, really, this is absolutely unbelievable, but the one thing they're protecting is their basketball tournament. They want the money from that basketball tournament, and they want it quickly. And they want it as long as they can get it. And they're going to fight to keep it. And to do that, they have to basically give up freedom of movement. And everybody says, well, that's going to make it difficult for a coach to put together a roster. Well, yeah, probably. But Lane Kiffin makes nearly $8 million a year to coach football. He can handle that. They can hire people to help him do it. They can expand the staff. They have the money to do it. When I was there, the athletic budget, like I told you many times, was $30 million. That was 17 years ago. Now it's about 110 to 120. That is 3 times, 4 times the size of what it was. We have not added any sports. They've got the money for the staff to be able to figure out the roster problems. They've got the money to be able to figure out what's going on. Just plain and simple. You're not going to get any sympathy from me about this. Now, I kind of lost my train of thought for a second, but let's go back to Jaron Willis. He's a linebacker that plays a lot like Chance Campbell. Under Armour All-American guy, has a chance to be special in this system. The other one is Tyler Banks. He is the opposite. He's a 240-pound linebacker, can run around pretty good, but he was, I think, a low 3-star. Now, the last time that a low 3-star got recruited by Ole Miss was Nick Broker, and that turned out to be pretty good. So you can't really go off rankings. You have to go off evaluations. And Tyler Banks might be able to fit in this particular system. I need to see him in this system, but this may be a system fit to where in another defense, if you asked him to do it, he might not be able to do it very well. But in this defense, he might be rangy enough to pull it off. I'm looking forward to see how he develops in fall camp. And I expect him to redshirt. Remember, the scholarship rules we just talked about, it happened. There's going to be less and less redshirting moving forward. It's going to be more of a what have you done for me now type situation. And people are going to go and disappear. I mean, the age of mercenary football is upon us. It doesn't matter if the kid is recruited out of high school or if he's a transfer exception. It's going to happen. It's going to be like the Major League Baseball draft when 20 years ago it was almost all high school kids. Now it's almost all college kids. Do you know why? It's because the Major League Baseball does not have to pay for 3 years of development, and they get kids that they can go straight to Double-A with instead of having to completely start them over and build their development in low A ball. Now you can start in year 3, in year 4, do the finishing touches on it and get this guy to the major league and get some years out of it to where the money makes a little bit of sense. The same thing's going to happen in college football. Why would you spend years developing a kid that could just leave when you could take a kid that can help you right now? Same stuff is going to happen. And you might get upset about that. That might not be what you want to see. That might not be your cup of tea. I understand that. That's fine. But mentally, take it there now. There's not going to be a situation where people hero worship like with a Matt Corral last year. That's going to go away. The relationship between fans and players and fans and coaches are going to change. It's no longer going to be yours. Because your school, that's the one you're going to look at. Your school has brought these kids in for 1 year to win this year. It's a 2022 team. It's a 2023 team. It's a 2024 team. It is not a program. Do not look at it as a program anymore. And if you do this and take these baby steps, you can transition more easily. It can be more effective and you can get some enjoyment out of the game. Because college football is not going anywhere. With or without you, it's not going anywhere. Because they're going to gamble on it and all of this in the States, it's going to make money. It's going to be here. The question is, what is the reason for your enjoyment of it? That is what you have to ask. And if you can figure out the answer to it, if you can figure out what's going on and why you like it so much, you can almost hedge these events that are going to happen. So I tell people all the time, this is the mercenary era of college football. Just is what it is. Anyway, get more on the SEC by making Locked On SEC your second listen every day. Host Chris Gordy and local experts, that's me, of Locked On take you across the SEC in 30 minutes. Make Locked On SEC your second listen. Locked On SEC. Anyway, first day of camp's in the books. Today is the second day, I think. Enjoy it. Have fun. We finally here. Football has started. Peace.